Hey, Sue, I have oh, sorry. Are we ready? Hold on one sec, please.
Yes, ma'am. We're now on YouTube Live.
Are we on?
Yes, ma'am. We are. We're ready.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I want to welcome you to the Conservation and Development Subcommittee, and I hope everybody is warm and cozy in their homes or offices, and the weather has not affected them too much in this. I want to ask my co-chair, does she have anything she'd like to say this morning?
No, I think that yesterday's hearing went well, and I'm hoping that today's goes as well. We do have more people tonight for the public hearing component of it, and I hope everybody can stay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, madam. Let's see, I'm looking for Senator Minor. Is he with us? No. Okay. I think I saw Representative France right there. Good morning, sir.
Morning, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. Looking forward to another opportunity to hear from the agencies, and then, of course, later on we'll have the public hearing. So, go ahead and get started. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Senator Minor, did you have a lot of snow? Did you do a lot of plowing this morning?
No plowing. It's still snowing a little. I was making raspberry jam.
Thank you for sharing
You're
that.
welcome.
Maybe we'll do a Zoom and you can teach us how to make raspberry jam. I think that would be an awesome Zoom.
I thought that one was safe.
Well, thank you. Okay, I would like to, let's see, the co-chairs for the subcommittee are Representative Gibson. Representative Gibson, would you like to say good morning?
Hi, I'm having a little technical difficulties here, but good morning. I hope everyone's safe.
Thank you. And I don't see Senator Hartley on here as of yet, but she is the co-chair of the subcommittee. So I hope that we will have the opportunities for everybody to ask questions. So we will move right into the first committee today. The first committee is the Department of Energy Environmental Protection. And I want to welcome everybody, and I want to welcome the commissioner and give her the opportunity, Commissioner Katie Dykes, for the opportunity to introduce her team, and then we can go right into questions. If you have questions from all my members, please go and raise your hand so that I can acknowledge you and we can move right into the subject matter, because we have asked the agencies to give us a brief intro, but give us most of the time so that we can talk about a lot of the questions that we've had, because doing it on Zoom, it's a little different. We have more time, but then we have less time because of the technology and trying to make sure that everybody is available. So with that, Commissioner Dykes, are you around? Are you available?
I'm here.
Good to see
Great. You. Great to see you. Thank you, Representative Walker and Senator Austin, Senator Minor and Representative France, and all the honorable members of the Appropriations Committee for giving us this opportunity to present before you today. I want to introduce our terrific team at DEEP, Dennis, who will be assisting in answering all of your questions today. Dennis Thibodeau is our Bureau Chief for our Bureau of Central Services. I'll let them wave when they're, so you can see if they come up in the screen here. We have our Deputy Commissioner, our newest Deputy Commissioner for Environmental Conservation, Mason Trumbull. Betsy Wingfield is our Deputy Commissioner for Environmental Quality. Becky Hackett is our Deputy Commissioner for Energy. And also pleased to have with us PURA Chairman Marissa Gillette, who joins us as well. So we're delighted to take any questions that you may have for us.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm going to ask everybody to please put your computers on mute so that we don't have feedback, especially because of the feedback that we get when we do YouTube Live and CTN. So I thank you all, and I will start out, Commissioner. First of all, thank you for being here. Can you tell us how much money you have received in COVID this past time, and what did you use the dollars for?
Great, thank you, Representative. So obviously, it's been a very challenging year for all of us in Connecticut, and our department has been. I'm proud of how we have been able to contribute to supporting the citizens of Connecticut in COVID response in numerous different ways. With respect to any specific COVID funding we received, we do not have any COVID dollars funding that we have received to support our operations. We have, other than in-kind support in terms of PPE that's been provided to the department. Dennis, do you want to add anything there?
Yes, so we've been tracking cost, and primarily it is PPE. So we've been getting PPEs all along since early March, right to date. So that's supplies provided by our Emergency Operations Center. So that's worked out pretty well. But we're tracking staff costs and other costs for the agency, and we'll be seeking reimbursement from OPM before the end of the fiscal year.
So you are supposed to keep a tally, and then you're submitting a request for funding back from OPM?
Yes.
Okay. That's interesting. So did you receive any FEMA dollars? Did you receive any federal dollars whatsoever during this pandemic? That was out of ordinary.
I'll answer that, Katie. Not as of yet. There's no FEMA funds available to the agency. Again, PPE was our biggest challenge, back when parks were opening, and getting that support was critical for us. Tracking costs, our costs, a lot of our costs is in our park operations. Some overtime costs as well we were tracking. And again, through the end of the last fiscal year, it wasn't significant enough, carrying it forward in this fiscal year. We're right about $200,000 right now to date. So we'll keep on managing those costs and again, trying to work with, within available proceeds and working with the administration for recoveries as well.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. My next question, and I will say that we are allowed to do 2 questions at a time. My next question, I think probably will be a hot topic, will be, can you explain to us your broadband expenditures in your budget for this year? I saw that you are providing funds for 13 people in both years, and it's $2 million, approximately $2 million each. Explain what utilized for, and yes, I'm sorry, go ahead and explain to us the broadband support that you are going to be doing in this round.
Great. So about 23% of residents in the state of Connecticut lacked broadband access prior to COVID. And these numbers are, more challenging when they're split along racial and socioeconomic lines. So the budget items that are included in here, these expansions will support staff that will be able to advance a number of different initiatives in terms of facilitating high-speed broadband that will be accessible for all, promoting economic development, protecting consumers, and reducing costs. And there are a number of different policy avenues through which that goal will be accomplished that are reflected by the different staffing allocations and roles that will be leveraged across different parts of state government. So I don't know, Vicki, why don't I turn it over to you and then the chairman to speak to the specific roles related to DEEP that will be supported here.
Yes, thank you. And good morning, everybody. So at DEEP, the Bureau of Energy and Technology Policy, the vision for the Office of Telecom and Broadband that we'll be establishing there will be to sort of pull together the functions that are going on throughout the state to track broadband implementation and to develop metrics for acceptable levels of broadband speed to determine if areas are, well served or underserved. And to appear in proceedings before PURA, because there are some regulatory functions within this statute that are being assigned to PURA on behalf of the administration. So we'll be working closely with OPM, which will have the mapping function that's envisioned in this bill, to develop sort of the statewide map for everybody to be able to see, where our broadband access is and to be able to sort of focus resources. We'll be coordinating with OPM on that, and we'll be developing planning processes to help us reach the goal for universal access. And there are 3 positions within BETP: an office director, an attorney, and a research analyst.
Okay, that's under PURA.
No,
Or,
that,
under DEEP, sorry.
yeah, that's under BETP Deep. Yep. And I believe Chairman Gillette is here and could probably speak to the PURA part.
Good morning, sir.
Apologies. I'm home with my 4-year-old twins, which I know Senator Winfield can relate to. So we've got extra muting precautions this morning. So good morning. My name is Marcia Gillette. I'm the chair of the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority. And to speak to your question, Representative Walker, there are 10 positions in the budget, in the governor's proposed budget, that would facilitate the implementation of the administration's broadband bill. Currently, PURA has very limited jurisdiction in the telecom cable space following the deregulation of those sectors about 2 decades ago. So the positions that are proposed to fall within PURA are a split between attorneys, engineers, and what are called utilities examiners. We think our read of the bill itself would require PURA to significantly scale up its enforcement and oversight regarding pole attachments in particular, as well as fielding customer complaints and working hands-on with broadband providers, which PURA does not regulate at this moment. So I'm happy to go into more detail, but I want to stop there and see if that was an answer.
I think,
thank you.
I think that you have provided an opportunity for many of my colleagues to shore up their questions. So I will be true to my request and ask everybody to do 2 questions at a time and come back if they're not answered. So at this point, first, I'm going to ask everybody who is not speaking to please go back to mute, because we will then get feedback after a while because of the dual broadcast that we're trying to do now, YouTube Live and CTN. So I see people have not muted. Representative Dillon, would you mute your microphone, please? Thank you. All right, Senator Austin.
Thank you very much. Commissioner, I have a couple of questions. One relative to the energy component of your budget. And I was wondering, how many people do you have assigned to handle things like anaerobic digesters?
So we are those responsibilities, depending on which function we're talking about with respect to anaerobic digestion, would include permitting responsibilities, policy planning responsibilities for waste, which reside within EQ, the environmental quality branch of the department. And then we have staff within the Bureau of Energy and Technology Policies, energy supply team, who are assisting with respect to procurements associated with the anaerobic digestion. I know you're aware we are planning a meeting a week from today on organics infrastructure, kickoff meeting with developers to talk about procurement activities upcoming for this year. So Betsy, do you want to speak to the number of staff supporting on the permitting side?
So thank you, Commissioner, and thank you for the question, Senator. We don't have specific FTEs devoted to AD. However, there are a series of permits that are required for, especially an on-farm AD or even a commercial AD facility. So it's resources within our materials management and compliance assurance for solid waste permitting. and also within our water permitting and enforcement for construction stormwater and industrial storm once it's built. Also in our air permitting program, because of the air permit that are required. Also, in the environmental conservation side, you need a natural diversity database determination for those permits. And so it's not full FTEs, but portions of FTEs from across the agency.
You're muted, Kathy.
I know, I'm sorry. I was talking on two different committees. Sorry, apologize. So I'm trying to find out really what I'm trying to find out, Commissioner, if we could come to a point where my understanding is you have X number of staff, but we in Massachusetts, they approve anaerobic digesters in less than a month. And we take 13, 14, 15 months to do the same thing. So I wanted to make sure that we're providing you with the staff to get this done so that we can get some of our agricultural community to participate in anaerobic digesters, which is not only a good environmental issue, it's a good energy saving issues for them. And I just want to put that on the record because we talked about this for the last 2 years and we still haven't yet got to the point where we can finally get to permitting in a fashion that's a little bit quicker. My second question is revolving also on the environment side, and I'm curious on the component relative to the CIA fund. What does your department have anything to do with the funds that are, I know they do, relevant to the CIA fund, in particular to open space and farmland protection?
So I'll turn to Mason for this one, or Dennis.
Good morning, Senator. Thanks for that question. Traditionally, our CIA funds have been used in our open space watershed acquisition grant round, and that is our intent to continue using those in the future for that use. Dennis, feel free to add in if you have anything else.
Yeah, we, as Mason said, we contribute those funds as well as bond funds, open space bond funds for the grant round, and receive quarterly payments into the account, the CIA account, for that purpose.
Thank you very much. I'm also curious on, I can't go to the next question, but I will be asking questions relative to the Passport to Parks and how many of your staff are now being paid out of that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sorry, thank you. Next, oh, I'm not on mute, okay. Next, Senator Minor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So the governor has proposed in his budget a number of cuts that are identified as personnel and facilities. Looks like 700,000 in year one and 1.4 million in year two. Could somebody explain where those cuts will come from and what facilities will be eliminated or closed?
Sure, let me turn to Dennis to walk through this one.
Okay, Senator Minor, we've undertaken, we look at our footprint. We're spread out throughout the state, and we've been managing that infrastructure. We have a great tool that helps us with that. So what were those savings are going to be, we're consolidating. We have a proposal or a fully designed Western District office, which will consolidate a number of offices, roughly 12 offices, into one, and it's being slated for BlackRock. It's completely designed right now. It's a LEED Platinum facility, a state-of-the-art facility, which we want to take full advantage of. We have our current Western District facility that has it's surpassed its useful life, I'll say. And we have a number of facilities just spread out. So we're trying to consolidate and make wise decisions, infrastructure decisions, to minimize costs. So in year one of the budget, $700,000 is is savings, operational savings. It's not limited just to buildings itself. We've been, doing this undertaking and really mapping out our footprint, for quite some time. Again, using what National Parks uses, this Maximal tool, it's an IBM tool, to really kind of create some metrics for each building, each investment that we make. I'd be happy to share more data from that particular database and what we've collected to date. But the example would be more or less going forward with that Western District, which is ready to go out to bid right now. And it's with Department of Construction Services. And again, that will be a building I think the state will be very proud of.
So actually, Commissioner, I was rather surprised that you flipped this all over to that one side of the agency. Am I incorrect in assuming that these savings will be shared across the agency as a whole and not focused solely on outdoor recreation?
So I think certainly the opportunities that we have on the infrastructure savings side are primarily associated with our physical footprint, which is, the lion's share of those facilities are within our parks and wildlife natural resources side of the agency. So that's why we shared this example around Western District and the prioritization that we're doing on our physical footprint. But Dennis, do you want to add any additional with respect to some of the savings targets across?
Yeah, well, clean air is identified there too. We have air sheds throughout the state. So managing those air sheds, we're going to find savings there. We're not really, shutting down air sheds. We're going to have the air sheds operational. We use federal funds as well to produce some of those savings. And we're looking across the agency at all our infrastructure. We've mapped out everything from dams to, bridges. And as you're aware, we have just about everything. 1,100 buildings we've had under our preview, historic facilities. So it's obviously our biggest footprint, as Katie's saying, is really on the EC side, but we're looking at our dams, our flood erosion control facilities, everything. All our infrastructure is being mapped into Maximo, and again looking at the investment and how we could reduce maintenance costs. So some of that cost is too. We have folks that go out with flood and erosion control properties. We have staffing that go out there just to do mowing. Again, we're trying to consolidate that information so we have better data and we're better utilizing our staff. So we're just creating more efficiencies there. So it's really touching all areas of the agency. We'll all benefit from that.
So it still sounds like it's coming out of that one section of the agency. I would request that we get a list, perhaps for the next meeting, that shows us what public facilities, if any, are intended to be closed, either temporarily or permanently. And then how the actual savings of 700,000 and 1.4 million are spread across the agency itself.
If I may, Senator Minor, I think that the key is that we're not looking to diminish services or reduce facility benefits that the public receive from our facilities, but actually through the Maximo database and the asset inventory process that we're going through, we're identifying the operational and maintenance costs, which are about 70% of the cost of our physical structures. And where we have aged facilities that are, reaching the end of useful life, or where they have those excessive operational maintenance costs, we are identifying opportunities where we can build new or consolidate facilities in a way that provides same or better services, but with lower all-in kind of life cycle costs for these facilities. So the Western District is a great example of that. 12 aged facilities that are being consolidated into one newer LEED certified facility that will have a lower operating cost as a result. but we'd be delighted in the working sessions or to share more information about all of these opportunities.
Thank you. I look forward to that list. My second question has to do with the concern that the relationship between Passport to Parks and the agency on the general fund side provides a lot of opportunity to shift costs to a funding stream that many of us stood up for the agency for. Many of us have continued to try and protect, and many of us are concerned will become an offloading opportunity of general fund expenditures. We are intending to have a conversation about how we might direct the agency to do different things with regard to the $15 million that comes in on the Passport to Parks program annually. How worried do we need to be that that under the governor's direction for these cuts, the rescissions, adjustments, annualized costs of holdbacks, that the agency, at least this side of the agency, will seek that as an opportunity to find reductions so that other areas of the agency can add staff?
I will say that we are very grateful for the support from the governor and from especially the General Assembly for protecting the Passport to Parks program and preserving its integrity so that we can provide quality outdoor recreation access for the citizens of our state. That without Passport, I shudder to think what last year would have looked like as our outdoor recreation mission really exploded during the pandemic in a good way. We saw a 50% increase in trail usage that's been sustained throughout the seasons we've seen. Just the stats are really staggering in terms of how people have rediscovered and begun to use our parks more and more often, and our state forests during this time, and our boat launches. So that's a good thing, because this is our mission. We want to connect people to the outdoors, but it has also meant that during the pandemic, we had some increased expense, operation and maintenance expenditures that we needed to be able to provide people with a safe and accessible outdoor recreation experience. For example, more portalets, more frequent cleanings and cleaning services that we needed to procure. Those are just a few of the examples of things that Passport enabled us to be able to support during this time when the public was looking to our outdoor recreation assets for an outlet during the pandemic. So I think I'll turn it over to Dennis and to Mason to speak a little bit more, but I think we feel very again invested and protective of those Passport dollars, because it is so critical for us to do the thing that we've all we all work at DEEP in order to do, which is to help support outdoor recreation and natural resource protection.
I'm just gonna ask that we start to be a little bit more succinct into the answers, because we have at least 10 other people that are in line, and we only have about 30 minutes. So
we can leave it there if you want, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, sir. Representative France, followed by Senator Hartley, followed by Representative Gibson, followed by Representative Ferraro, followed by Representative Datham, followed by Senator Kushner. There we go. There's the lineup. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Commissioner, for you and your team being here to answer questions on the governor's budget. First, I'd like to expand on what I heard during your opening remarks related to access to broadband. I think you said there was a 23% gap in that access, if I heard you correctly. But really, is that driven by the availability of broadband, or is it driven by that number by who is actually being able to take advantage of that, whether it be cost or other reasons, to actually have the broadband in their residence, as opposed to the fact that it's available to them and for whether it be cost or other reasons, they don't have it in their home.
So I'm happy to jump in on this one. So, I think it's really a combination. It's having the wires to your home, right? But it's also making sure that there are consumer protections in place so that people aren't being redlined or discriminated against by the providers. And I think that's where some of the responsibilities are in the bill for PURA. I do think it's both.
Thank you for it. It'd be kind of interesting to understand where there is access. In other words, the infrastructure exists, but it is not being taken advantage of, and why, to better understand the problem of ensuring that the people truly have equal access to that service.
That's exactly what the bill is intended to help us figure out by providing that mapping function within OPM, so that we can really, and reporting requirements for providers through PURA, so that we can see exactly where access problems are and where the infrastructure is and where the gaps are.
Thank you for that. The second question I have is related to that regulatory authority or oversight and of the internet. Broadband being one avenue to the internet. Where does the state get the authority to do that? Just traditionally, the internet has been, because it crosses state boundaries, is not something that has been traditionally regulated at the state level. And are there other states that are doing something similar to what we're proposing here? And do we have data that comes from those states to indicate efficacy or efficiency of that process?
Chairman Gillette, would you want to respond to that question from Representative France? Oh, I think you're muted.
I'm so sorry. Thank you for that question, Representative France. I would concur with the first part of your statement, but what I would say in response is that the bill is structured to focus on the infrastructure that's in the state rather than regulating the more, cerebral internet that crosses state lines. So what we're focused on through this bill is the build out of the infrastructure that the broadband providers would be conducting in state. What this bill doesn't do is give PURA the power to regulate the prices or the components of the providers' offerings, which are still preempted likely by federal law. So we think that the bill observes the delineation between federal and state responsibilities by focusing on the infrastructure build out and what occurs in state. So I hope that's responsive. Happy to clarify.
One quick follow-up on that related to regulatory. So if you're looking at the infrastructure, are you envisioning some sort of mandate on providers to build out the infrastructure, whether there is an economic viability of that? So I guess I'm unclear as to what you think the regulatory authority is going to look like if it's not a pricing and that kind of control, what the role of PURA is going to be in that.
It's a great question. So part of what the bill does is it repeals the prohibition on PURA looking at the infrastructure build out if a provider is in that community. The other major focus of this bill, as I alluded to in my first response, is a focus on the pole attachments. Currently, we know that we have an issue in the state, as do almost every state in this country, with the speed at which competitive attachments are made to the utility poles. And by scaling up PURA's enforcement authority over the pole attachments, I think there is an expectation that broadband providers and others want to be on those poles and want to build out, and that the resources that this bill provides would help PURA in speeding up those processes.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Senator Hartley.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioner and staff. Thanks for being with us. I know we're going to have some other rounds, so this is just like the 50,000 foot discussion. Under the broadband, because there'll be a lot of discussion about this. And by the way, I think rightfully so. It used to be that you'd ask the question of, how were we equipped? How did we stack up in terms of this service, this utility, if you will? And the response you would typically get would be that the state of Connecticut rates high. And in fact, I think there was even a study which showed us as being, very well wired, if you will. But the other part of that was if you could afford it. And so this is a very timely conversation, and I thank the commissioner, the governor, for bringing this forward. Mike, this is just a little follow-up from Representative Franz. So how is this going to interface work over eliminate the CEN? We had that for years on the books, and we distinguished ourselves as putting that system in place. Have we not capitalized on this? We basically, we had an Office of Broadband that was just, on the books without any funding. So without spending a lot of time, if you could answer this now, or if you want to come back.
Yeah, there is a section within the bill that I believe leverages the Connecticut Energy Network and focuses on educational institutions and access to broadband within educational institutions. That's not within DEEP's. DEEP is not within that section, so I'll leave that for other people to explain, but there is a section that deals with that.
So that's Consumer Council.
I believe the Consumer Council is referred to in that portion of the section, but it's OPM, and I'll look for that in the bill and refer back to it.
Okay, yeah, it's kind of hard just to kind of follow the the line here, and so then the discussion about the municipal gain and so forth would be with OPM. Is that what you're saying? With regard to the polls, the municipal.
Things to do with the polls and access to the polls would actually be within PURA's jurisdiction within this.
And so then the municipalities have the status, if you will, on the polls as referred to as the gain. Is that correct? How?
Yes, the chairman, go ahead, Marissa, sorry.
Yes, Senator. Sorry, this is the chairman of PURA again. There was a discussion about the municipal gain that predated my tenure at PURA, but since I've arrived, the agency's prior position was overruled in Superior Court, and the municipal gain decision has been clarified. So municipalities, the gain that municipalities are entitled to is available to them in the poll attachment process that would be sped up and enforced through this broadband bill. That's how it would be addressed, is through the enforcement of the poll attachment process.
Okay, so it's not, there's no change here.
No, ma'am.
I'm sorry, did I cut you off, Victoria?
No, I was just going to jump in and let you know that it's section 3D that has the Commission for Educational Technology in conjunction with a variety of other entities preparing an analysis on the availability of broadband internet access for education purposes.
Okay, thank you. And so I guess this would make me put my second question out. So if you would, you identify 4 categories with regard to the access to broadband, and we have breakdowns for FY 22, 23, and each one of those. Can you give us the next round, if you would, a breakdown of each of those tranches of money? We don't want to know about paper clips, but we just want to generally understand what those allocations are for. And I will tell you about the broadband mapping. I'd be very interested in, a timeline of when we're going to see that.
We'd be happy
Thank you.
to follow up on those. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. You're gonna have to come back with that, but I want to say, as Senator Hartley brought up and several others, we're going to need a lot more detail about the Office of Broadband. The whole development. We need to have a little bit more understanding of who is responsible to whom, and how many people there are, and what is the budget. I'm getting the impression that there are multiple budgets in here that are being established that we need to understand and go from there. So I just want to give that. Representative Gibson. I'm sorry, Senator Hartley, are you good? Okay, thank you. Representative Gibson.
Hi, good morning, and thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a general question. I know we'll be revisiting this at some other point in time, but I just have, I'd like to get some information on storm preparedness and how going forward the agency is going to deal with preparing and responding to storms like we had this summer.
Chairman Gillette, would you like to answer that question?
I'd be happy to, and Representative Gibson, I'd be happy to give an answer right now and then take it offline for any level of detail you'd wish. So PURA is responsible for adjudicating the utilities preparation and response to that storm. We have an investigation that is nearing completion. We conducted public comment hearings, evidentiary hearings. We're in the briefing schedule right now with the expectation that we will issue a draft decision on March 19th, I believe. So in parallel to the investigation to look at what went wrong and what could be improved from that storm, we also had underway our grid modernization procedures, grid modernization proceeding, which has 11 different tracks that are focused on both hardening the existing infrastructure, strategically improving it, and ensuring that the ratepayers' investment to date and moving forward yields the proper return on investment. So I would be happy to explain any of those processes to you offline, as well as articulate how you and your constituents' perspectives can be taken into account in the proceedings, because PURA, as a quasi-judicial agency, can only make decisions based on evidence that is put before us in the record. And it's very important and very critical that we have all those perspectives represented. So I'd be happy to take that offline with you, sir.
Thank you. There's one more question. I get two, right? So, as far as the customers are concerned, how about any type of any type of restitution or any type of things that we've done to make it better for them, those who are out for power and those who lost food, and anything that would make things a little bit better for the customers?
Absolutely. So we have a couple of different tracks. The Take Back Our Grid Act, Public Act 20-5, which was adopted by you all in the special session, directed PURA to come up with rules and regulations about how customer credits for residential customers would be offered. And we have to reach a determination in that proceeding by July 1st of this year. So that is actually underway right now. And it involves the issuance of $250 customer credits to cover food spoilage and expired prescriptions. So that, like I said, will be completed by July 1st. Also, in the grid modernization docket, we have one track focused on energy storage and have a specific focus on underserved communities and communities that have been repeatedly impacted by extended outages and are looking to provide adders and incentives to deploying energy storage for those repeatedly hit communities, which can be measured with metrics that we have in place today. So those are two of the immediate pathways.
Thank you, Commissioner. I look forward to speaking to you in the future. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I will say, Commissioner, please provide that to the subcommittee, where you are, give an overview of where you are with getting the established process for restitution for people out there, so that we have an opportunity to give input. Okay, Representative Ferraro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I I just have a couple of questions with regards to broadband and piggybacking on Senator Hartley's comments, your comments, and Commissioner Dyke's. The Commissioner Dyke referenced a 29% of the folks that do not have broadband currently. And obviously the goal was to get to 100% ubiquitous broadband coverage. My first question would be, what is the cost per linear foot of fiber cable that would have to be laid to individual households from the street to the house?
So we don't have those estimates precisely. We could follow up in terms of any industry averages to share with you.
That's unfortunate because I understand it's quite expensive, especially if the house is hundreds of feet from the road. And the concern I have is where is the money being budgeted for the laying of such cable? Is it coming from the state? Is it going to be a quasi partnership with the homeowner who will share some of the cost? What's the plan to get these 29% residents the cable or the fiber they need in order to get to broadband?
So I believe that Chairman Gillette could probably talk about the approach to ensuring that providers are fully building out within their service territories. But I think that another aspect of this is developing the maps so that we can see where the gaps are and then invest and where the gaps in adequate speed are so that we can further investigate, the best way to get rollout in those places, especially if there are gaps in service areas. But I'll defer to Chairman Gillette on that.
Hi, Representative. Good to see you 2 days in a row. So what I would offer first is, unlike other industries that PURA regulates, the costs for laying out that broadband are not going to be regulated by PURA. We wouldn't be regulating the pricing or the offer terms directly. So it would in large part be up to the broadband provider to outlay that capital as that industry has been competitive for some time now. But what I will say to piggyback on the Deputy Commissioner's response about the mapping is an approach that we see in other states quite frequently is that the detailed mapping facilitates the state's competitiveness for the federal grants. They're called RDOF grants, Rural Development something funds, but they're grants that the federal government has previously made available and we expect will be made available under the new federal administration in larger quantities, that we would be more competitive as a state by having these detailed broadband maps, a la, Colorado, Vermont, New Hampshire. There have been a lot of states that have been successful as a result. So securing those grants will alleviate, will further contribute to some of that competitive build out.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that. I think the mapping is crucial, as you said, and I'm pretty sure that, as you also indicated, the mapping will lead to the possibility of getting some federal dollars. My concern by this line of questioning was 29% is no small number. It's a rather large number. And the laying of fiber cable is very, very expensive. And I'm pretty sure that most residents are not in a position where they're going to be able to afford self connection. And it's going to come down to state dollars and federal dollars. And it's going to be a substantial amount to connect 29%. And so I'm very interested, as Senator Hartley is, in the mapping information and when it'll be available and what the plan, and I know PURA doesn't regulate such things, but in order to get 100% broadband participation, there's going to be state involvement, and it's going to be a substantial financial amount. And I was just wondering when we might be able to expect that information and where that money is going to come from.
Yeah, Representative, I'll say that I think a good overview of the strategy in this proposal is to advance policy changes that are going to make the build out of broadband cheaper and more accessible, like streamlining pull attachments, the one touch make ready proposal, the mapping that will identify those gaps and point to inequities where there may be lack of access, whether that's rural or urban communities that are experiencing that, for example. All of this, I think, will position Connecticut competitively, as the chairman mentioned, to access federal grant dollars and to help broadband providers win federal grants that will support broader access. So that's, I think as a first forward step here, that's the thrust of it, is to make sure that we have a policy environment that's best going to leverage those federal dollars or corporate investments where the market is trying to provide access, particularly, but the full attachment process, for example, or other regulatory barriers may slow that down or make it more costly.
Well, I thank you for your answers, Commissioner, and thank you, Chairman Walker, and I concur with you that there's a lot more to be done with broadband and to access the information going forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I will say we have Representative Datham, Senator Kushner, Senator Winfield, and Representative Dillon. So I will ask you to be right there and very clear about your questions. Thank you. So Representative Datham.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to the DEEP Department and especially to the Commissioner. You did a good presentation. I want to just concur with my colleagues on the questions regarding broadband. I also want to understand how it will affect areas that do have access but have poor access. One of my biggest complaints that I get from my constituents is the sort of reliability of their internet and broadband services and the cost and sort of those issues. And I'm hoping that we are relying on, putting together this department, but also thinking about how maybe some other states that are doing this better, and hopefully we are understanding that. So I'm hoping when we do kind of talk about the overall broadband initiative, we are talking about that. That's going to be my first question, Chairman, is just to make sure that we are addressing that in that response. My second question really is the transfer of heads from DEEP to DAS regarding the human resources and labor relations functions. Wanted to get an understanding from you as a department head, Commissioner, what your view is and how this will affect the workings of your agency.
Call you right now.
Excuse me, could you mute your microphones? Representative McGee, go ahead.
So that's pretty much my question in terms of how are you going to be working going forward with that?
Representative, can they provide some of that information to you in the next go round? Because
that's absolutely true. And then if we can also have in the next go around, I want to hear how DEEP is addressing the Mira plant closure and how that's going to affect the operations of the entity. Also, the trash disposal of our municipalities and their cost. So if you can bring that all to the working group, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you. Senator Kushner. You're mute. You're muted.
Got it. Okay, sorry, I had trouble unmuting. I just have two quick questions. My first is related to the increased usage of parks. You attributed 50% increase in park usage during this COVID period, which I agree was wonderful and important. But I wondered how that relates to the COVID funding that you're looking for reimbursement, because it did seem to me the $200,000 up to now figure that we got earlier in this conversation seems low compared to that enormous usage of parks. And so that was my first question.
I think so. We are tracking our expenditures that would be COVID related in the event that there's opportunities for reimbursement. But with the passport program that in place, it has enabled us to cover those costs even under the extraordinary usage that we've seen during COVID. So I made that comment just to point to how essential passport is, and especially for managing those operational and maintenance costs, and enabled us to be able to rise to the occasion of this past year, which we expect many of those circumstances to be in place for 21.
And I totally appreciate that. And I said that to everyone. This is why it's so important that we have passport to parks and we preserve it. So I appreciate that. But I also think that, you know, if there aren't funds available to reimburse for that increased usage, we should be working with our federal delegation to try and get those funds, because it really seems to me we shouldn't be stressing our passport to parks program. That was sort of my point, and the point of my question. And then the second question is also related to broadband, or to the comments of the chairman, Pura. I heard you say that we're preempted from regulating costs, prices set by the internet companies. And I wondered if that relates directly to the difficulties we're having right now with the increased pricing, the increases in prices for usage of internet during this crisis. Particularly, people are struggling with that, and I think we were looking to government to try and, you know, regulate that and hold that back. Are you saying that we're preempted from doing that because of federal law?
Yes, ma'am. That's correct. We received a lot of inquiries over the past year looking for us to take similar action, looking for Pura to take similar action with respect to internet services as we did with electric, gas, and water by placing the moratorium on disconnects for the first part of the pandemic. Unfortunately, since that industry was deregulated, I believe it was in the 90s, it has since been largely preempted by the federal government, mostly the FCC. So we are not able to regulate the pricing or offer terms of those services at Pura, and the broadband bill would unfortunately not be able to restore that. What we can do, and what Pura always strives to do, is take customer complaints and redirect them to the appropriate contacts within those companies, because we maintain those relationships even though we don't directly regulate them any longer. And when I initially made these kind of statements to a municipal call through CCM last year, I received a letter from the Western COG, I believe, who rightly pointed out that although I do not have jurisdiction over the internet companies, I can certainly work with the pole owners, which are most commonly the electric utilities, to ensure that that internet and cable services are not being unduly hampered in their restoration following the storm. So we are I took that to heart, and we are considering how we can incorporate those, set those kind of metrics for our electric utilities. So at least we're taking action in the areas that I do have regulatory authority over.
Thank you for both those answers, and thank you, Chairman Walker.
Senator Winfield.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. One, I just want to associate myself with all of the concerns around broadband. And then just a relatively simple question that the answer may or may not be simple, that I think I'm going to ask everybody who comes before us. I had to step off, so if you answered this, I'll just go back and get the answer. But as I look through the budget, I see all of the annualization of the rescissions and the holdbacks. And when you all come before us, you're never flush with cash, right? That never happens. And so I still can't figure out how this budget works, because I don't know how annualizing those rescissions and holdbacks impacts each agency. And I imagine that what you asked us for last time that you came before us and you got whatever you got, you needed that money. and the cost of doing business always goes up. So I just would like to know what the actual impact of having this as part of the budget is, and where those impacts actually show up, because I don't have that level of detail in the budget that I look at so that I can clearly see that. So if you can answer that briefly now, that would be great. If not, I'd be happy to take it in the work group.
I think probably the work group is the best place for us to take it, but I will say just as a very general statement that, you know, we do have continued and expanding challenges and emerging issues that we're responding to all across the agency, whether it's addressing climate change or PFAS contamination or other types of things, in addition to continuing our ongoing work and mission responsibilities. But we are, for that reason, we have been investing in prioritizing, you know, efficient process, and efficient approaches to managing our assets, cross-training staff, updating our regulatory program in numerous ways. Our 20 by 20 program is a good example of that, so that we can get more value and out of you know, the resources that we have that we're using to achieve our mission. And I know, recognizing how short the time is today, I think we'd love to bring some examples of that to you afterwards. Representative Walker's nodding, but it's certainly something that we are working hard on, and to ensure that we can continue to provide for our expanding mission in a way that is best utilizing the resources that we have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Dillon? Well, just to let everybody know, we are over our time, so please be very clear, and if you have to respond lengthy, please provide it to our subcommittee. Thank you. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think this would go to the subcommittee. I'm concerned about the security of our infrastructure, and there was a major hack of our federal systems last fall. We still don't know how bad it was and whether it compromised our national security. I would like you to provide to our subcommittee, is there any one place in our state government that is tasked with overseeing that, given that we have nuclear power plant, military installations, hospitals, and that we're building out to broadband? We are precluded from overseeing certain kinds of entities in terms of best practices. Could you provide the subcommittee with a site of what the reason would be? Is it the regulation, deregulation? Is there a federal place we can go? And is there a way that we can build security into any investment that we're going to make this year at expense of other things?
Thank you, Representative. Briefly, I know there's a lot of work that's been done on this over the years, including a cybersecurity action plan developed for the state. I believe that DAS, Mark Raymond, is well positioned to speak to some of that. It's an issue that touches so many different aspects of, as you mentioned, our economy and our mission within DEEP and PURA. So happy to do follow up on that one.
Thank you. So I just, before Senator Austin has one more, but I just want to ask that you come prepared next time to talk about the COVID impact, because part of this is the governor has flexible funds for COVID impact from the federal government, and all of those dollars should be utilized for things that we need to support. And I think broadband is one, and a variety of others. So we need to have a little bit more robust conversation about what is COVID impact and how we should be getting funding from the feds, because that was set up for that way. Senator Austin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I just want to put forth a few questions to bring the information back to the working group, please. I'm wondering about the lakes, rivers, and ponds account and the implementation of the aquatic invasive species fee, so I can see where we stand on that. I'm wondering, that's one question. Second question, on broadband, are you interfacing with a network that we already paid a lot of money for, the CEN, the Connecticut Education Network, and maximizing what we did there, using that resource so that we can expand? My understanding is when we put that in, there was a requirement that that also be a part of the public network. So I want to make sure that we're looking at that and not trying to recreate another whole new broadband system without at least taking advantage of that piece. And regarding the Passport to Parks component, I just would like to say that I, for one, who lives right down the road from one of the parks that was closed, am expecting that all parks will be open. And in particular, if our COVID numbers stay where they are, that they be open on time, and that we have no delay. Again, having people outside is clearly something that is important. And I think that that's, we want to make sure that we're doing that. And my last statement would be, last year we started the fishing season early. The Rural Caucus has sent a letter asking us to do the same thing this year. You have the opportunity to make that recommendation to the governor and his team there, and we would like to see that happen also, so that we know that we're getting young people outside who have for far too long been isolated. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Very quickly, Representative Ferrara, you have some questions for the subcommittee follow-up?
I thought I had put my hand down. I'm so sorry, Commissioner. Did I put my hand down?
Now you did. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Obviously, Commissioner, okay, everybody please mute. Okay. Obviously, Commissioner, there are a lot of conversations, and we didn't even get to the transfer of the human resources to the to DAS. So be prepared to talk about that issue and how does that impact you and operationally, along with all the questions about broadband, and also for the business aspect of developing the expansion of broadband. What are we trying to accomplish? Who are we trying to attract? Is also something that my colleagues have been asking. Why are we doing this? And has there been a study to make this move for the dollars that we're going for, and the usage of COVID dollars? Just a few things. So we will make sure that our time will reflect the intense conversation that we need to have for the next go round. So thank you all. Thank you all members of DEEP. You guys are great, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much, Representative. Great to be with you, and we look forward to continuing the conversation.
Thank you. I'm going to we're going to transition. I'm going to let DEEP leave, and we will start with the Office of Consumer Counsel in about 2 minutes. I'll give everybody a chance to get themselves set up.
Madam Administrator?
Yes.
Oh,
No.
sorry, I was actually looking for Sue, but I can ask you. I'm just wondering, did we get any handouts from the office? I didn't see them in my email, but I may be behind.
No, that's correct.
We did not get any, correct?
Okay,
correct.
thank you for verifying. I was going crazy here looking for them.
Okay. All right, I think DEEP has left the building, so we will go right into the Office of Consumer Counsel. Good afternoon, sir. Good morning, sir. Good morning. If you would be so kind to introduce your group, and we'll go right into the questions. Go right ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, committee chairs, Senator Austin and Representative Walker, ranking members, Senator Minor and Representative France, and the rest of the members of the committee. I'm Richard Sobolewski, and I'm the acting consumer counsel. I've been in that position since July 1st of 2019. Besides that, I've been with the office for a combined 34 years. So I've been some support in these appropriation committees before for prior agency heads. With me today are Dennis Thibodeau from DEEP. Since we're APO to DEEP, his group does a wonderful job with a lot of our administrative tasks, our budget work, and various other items. From OCC staff, I have Staff Attorney Andrew Minikowski. He's the agency longest of all our attorneys years. And also Bert Cohen, who joined our organization last May. He is a staff attorney and he is our broadband policy coordinator. He has a long history of working with the telecommunications and cable industry, and he's been a great hire for our office. We did file some paperwork yesterday, some testimony, and a listing of our duties that would be under the broadband bill.
Excuse me, Rich, did you file it in the APP testimony inbox? Is that where it went? That may be.
I think that's might have went around. I had our secretaries do that. Maybe I filed in the wrong place. I'm sorry.
No. That's fine. I'll make sure that the members get it right now. Thanks, Rich.
Thank you.
Thank you. You know what, since you did say, and we don't have it in front of us, could you just give us an explanation, very brief, on
Yes.
what your role with the broadband, the Access Broadband Program? Okay.
Okay. I like to call him Bert Cohen. He's been the policy coordinator and he's been very busy with broadband from the week he started with the agency. He's been working with the various parties, the governor's office and other people, so he can give you a great understanding of what he's been doing and the role he's had with the Office of State Broadband within the Office of Consumer Counsel. Bert?
You're muted, sir. There we go.
How poor. Not a good, a rather inauspicious beginning. In any event, Co-Chair Walker, thank you for your question. It's our office is really the only statutory office that is addressing broadband in the state of Connecticut. It has been quite a challenging time. As Rich indicated, I have over 30 years experience. Primarily, I worked with the provider side. Over the last 5 years of my career in private practice, I worked with municipalities, and I represented also the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities and the Coalition of Small Towns. So I'm well aware of the municipal interest in broadband. Our current role has been addressing the connectivity issues during the pandemic. We've worked with the governor's office on dealing with the remote learning issues, which led to the Everyone Learns initiative. And we've also provided legal guidance and occasionally policy guidance to the governor's office over the last 4 or 5 months, which led to this bill. We are involved in handling consumer issues that relate to connectivity and pricing. We've worked closely with municipal groups, the COGS, CCM, and COST. We also monitor closely the federal regulations and funding availabilities that are there. I wish you had directed many of the questions that this committee had of DEEP regarding broadband to our office, because we know the answers. We are, to the extent that anybody knows the answers. So in any event, that's just an overview, and happy to answer any direct questions.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for that answer. I'm going to go to my chair, my chairs in a minute, but I will say that it would be helpful for us because there are so many moving parts in this Office of Broadband. It's like, you know, when somebody has a problem, we're not sure exactly who to go to because it doesn't explain that in the budget. And I'm sure it has less explanation in the bill. So therefore, it would be beneficial if somebody did an organizational chart for us to address the Office of Broadband in the state of Connecticut and whose responsibility has what, so that we can sort of follow the bouncing internet or whatever you want to call it. So with that, I'll leave it on because we don't have a lot of time. Senator Austin is.
I'm here.
Yes.
I'm
Do you have
here.
any questions, ma'am? Do you have any questions?
I'm all set right now. I'll bring any questions I have to the working group.
Okay, thank you. Senator Minor said that he did not. So Representative France, do you have any?
I just have one question. It's a good kind of overview of the regulatory environment, kind of oversight by the Consumer Council. The two additional positions for your agency, how do you see that role expanding under the proposal by the governor, and what does that look like beyond what you already do, and how is that different? Or is it a scope of work that you foresee expanding as opposed to additional responsibilities?
Great question, Representative France. Right now, I am the broadband person for the state. I'm really a staff attorney. That is my role, but I spend probably about 90% of my time on broadband because of in essence, the crisis that we're in as a result of the pandemic. Under the bill, we have been given a lot of interagency coordination duties, which it is in the materials that we filed. In essence, our office touches virtually every aspect of broadband in the bill, and we are really the advocates for consumers and both whether they're homeowners or businesses before the agencies. And so that is part one, and that's a full-time job. We see the need to provide additional legal support for the regulatory proceedings that are going to occur as a result of the bill. And we also see the need to have a research analyst to be able to monitor the developments and coordinate not just with us, but with other state agencies that we'll be working with.
Very good. Thank you for that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Hartley, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you. I was just trying to raise my hand here. So thank you, Mr. Cohen, for being with us. And in view of the time, you indicated that a lot of the questions that preceded you with regard to our conversations with Deep and Pura are best answered by yourself. So rather than have to regurgitate all of those, could you simply address those as we then will go into our smaller meetings on your agency and others? One of them was that, I asked for a breakdown of these 4 categories with regards to the, how we are spending the money, not, on paper clips, but, just on the general expenditures and for what. And then you indicated that there is the opportunity for federal grants. So I'm interested in what federal grants the office may have received recently, and is there further opportunities, in particularly with much of the work that's going on with the Rebuild America program, and so we could talk a little bit more about that. And then I had, I'm not sure who I had asked it of previously, but I would like to have kind of a chronology, a summary of the CEN program, because at the time we kind of were lauded for having stood that up. And then after a period of time, it went dormant. So if you could provide us with that history so that we understand that system, because I mean, that infrastructure has been built. And so we want to, look at leveraging every single state asset that we have going forward. And then, I'm sorry, I'm doing stream of consciousness. Yeah, go ahead.
Senator Harley, just let me address the CEN real quickly. I've had extensive conversations with CEN since I've been in this position. They are available as what's called a middle mile transport. CEN does not provide service to end user customers as a government agency. So for instance, you're probably thinking about, can municipalities use CEN? Yes, they can for the middle mile, but they would still need to get someone else to connect to them, to the end user. So that's CEN. They are available as a middle mile transport.
Yeah, one of our, I think, flashpoints has always been that last mile in our infrastructure.
I can answer that too, Senator.
Please.
Okay. All right. The last mile is deep. I think tried to tell you the build out in the governor's bill relates to the companies that have cable licenses. There are several different kinds of cable licenses, but they have to complete building that out, and they need to do that without charging consumers for construction on the public rights of way, and the state can prohibit that based on a court decision from 1985, specifically relating to Connecticut. That's not a rate and charge. We can prohibit that. So that's number one. Number two is that these companies, many of them are, some of the most successful and largest telecommunications companies in the country. And they certainly, I'll use the northwest corner of the state as an example. There's probably about, back of the envelope, 110 miles that's not yet built out. There's been maybe a couple of miles that the providers have built out over the last, since 2007, when then the DPUC was prohibited from ordering cable companies to build out any further as part of that legislation. So there's going to be, they can partially pay for that. There's also some federal money that's available right now. There's $300 million that the National Telecommunications and Information Association has to give out to the states under the Consolidated Appropriations Act that was signed into law in late December. I've advocated that NTIA give that out, divvy that up equally amongst the 50 states, which would mean $6 million for Connecticut. Don't know what the answer is yet. We'll know more in the next month or so. In the Budget Reconciliation Act, I've seen a proposal that would potentially give the states up to $100 million for broadband expansion, adoption, mapping, et cetera. I don't know if that's going to make it through the reconciliation process, but if it doesn't, we have another bite at the apple through the Biden administration's infrastructure bill. And our office is actively participating in discussions with broadband advocacy groups throughout the country to make sure that, amongst other things, that the states get adequate funding for all of those things. With respect to pricing, mapping, there was a question about mapping that OPM will be overseeing the mapping. We will work with them. And OPM is required under the broadband bill to provide a report to the governor and the Energy and Technology Committee by the end of January 2022. And a lot of that will go into the idea of making a granular broadband map that my vision is that goes down to the household. With respect to consumer cost, there was a question about that. Right now, there's an emergency. I'm sorry.
I'm going to jump in because we only have a few minutes left, and some of those answers I think can be provided to the working group.
Okay, sure.
We are running behind, and I just want to make sure that if people have initial questions, they get their questions in, and then they go to the working group if necessary for those answers. But we only have about 10 minutes more because we ran over with the other group. So I'm trying to let people have lunch today. So otherwise, I mean, okay. Senator Hartley, do you have any more questions?
I do, but we'll get into it next round. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Do you want to tell him your questions so that he can be prepared?
Well, I guess I want to, on the more immediate, so we're not going to get the mapping until 2022, to know if we have any measure on the last mile with regard to, urban communities. You live in a city, you think you've got, access. And I understand that that's not exactly the case. So if there's anything that would help to, focus and give us information about that, that would be helpful. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Representative Gibson, do you have any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a real quick question that we can actually revisit when we meet again. There was a huge increase, Mr. Commissioner, in current services. When we meet again, or if you want to talk about it briefly now, you can just give a brief explanation in that.
The only increase in our budget is for the new positions. There is an increase in expenditures, probably from our actual, because we had numerous vacancies in the agency. We were down to 8 employees from our authorized level of 13. So in the last 2 years, we had significantly underspent in both our personal and in the benefit categories of our budget.
Okay.
All right. I understand, but maybe next time when we meet, you can explain how did you function before, if it wasn't adequate, to explain. I know filling those positions, but where those positions, they really need to be filled. But we can talk more about it later. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. And probably if you have any retirements that are going to be affecting you too, as we all know. Representative Ferraro, followed by Representative Datham. And then we need to move on to the last agency before 12. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll make this very quick and brief. Following my last line of questioning, the cost of implementing the broadband, I noticed that the attorney was speaking to the cost of broadband implementation being borne by federal dollars and programs when it came to the public rights of way. My concern is when we have private homeowners whose home is set back and hundreds of feet of broadband cable has to be laid out for them to have access to broadband. What my experience is with utilities is they'll bear the cost of that to lay it out, and then they'll put it in as an expense to the consumer across the board, so that somebody in, let's just say Stratford, Connecticut, is paying for the cost of somebody's fiber optic line that was installed out in Podunk, Connecticut, on his private property. And so I'm a little concerned about that and what the cost is going to be, and how much fiber optic cable is going to have to be laid out.
Sure. Representative Ferraro, the industry considers that the cost from the pole from the street to the house to be the installation cost, up to usually it's 150 to 250 feet. That's a standard installation, and whatever the price is, it's set. For the beyond that, it's considered it's basically, it's unregulated, sir, and you're absolutely right. It is astronomical. I've received calls from consumers who are in the same situation you're describing, where they have to pay thousands, sometimes up to $10,000 if they live on a private road or private driveway. So you're absolutely right.
All right, well, we can obviously flesh this out more in subcommittee meetings, but thank you very much. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Representative Datham.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just wanted to make sure that the working group addresses what the Office of Consumer Counsel is doing with this new broadband initiative to ensure that our constituents' broadband rates don't go up, that they're getting good value for money, and how, as an agency, you are protecting our constituents. Because I wasn't 100% sure about how this new initiative is working in that regards. So thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you, Madam. Are there any other questions that people want to have submitted to the team for follow-up? Are there any others? I think the most important thing is our understanding of what the Office of Broadband is going to, what it is now and what it's going to be, is really, really important for us, because we're all still trying to figure this out. And have we made the right decisions, and how did you make those decisions? I think that really helps. So thank you, gentlemen, for participating with us today. And we look forward to continued conversation on everything that you are endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to give a minute to let them leave, and Department of Agriculture is up next. Hey, Brian.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
We're doing well.
It's good to see you. Good to see you. Last time I saw you was at the school.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was good. That was a good day. That was a good day. A while ago.
Can't wait to get out and do more of those again.
Yeah, I miss those, especially with the schools. I look forward to that. I think we're all ready. I think we're all set. So Commissioner Herbert, go right ahead. Good to see you.
Well, good to see you as well. I believe members of the committee have received our written testimony and our accompanying PowerPoint document. So first, thank you all again. And Senator Austin, good to see you there. I didn't see it pop up on the screen. To the leadership of the subcommittee, thank you for your time and attention to our agency and the proposals we have before you. I understand that the will of the subcommittees has been to jump right into members' questions and discussion. I did want to point out before we get into there that we should have a bill coming your way, House Bill 6385, and that concerning enhancements to certain agricultural programs. That bill will revise the animal population control program limitations and disbursements. We have had a significant problem over the past couple of years with veterinarians deciding to opt out of the animal population control program because our reimbursements have not been what the costs of the procedures have been. And so vets are choosing to not offer that service. So that's forthcoming your way. And Senator Austin, I believe you would be interested in this. We have set up the latest round of the ag sustainability payments. We have processed them internally for the last quarter of calendar year 2020. They're on their way to DAS in the comptroller's office to be paid out to the dairy farmers across the state. The total pool was 1.55 million for this round. So those were the two things that I wanted to get out there. I hope members had a chance to read the testimony and review the accompanying PowerPoint about what the Department of Agriculture does and the role that we play in the state. But with that, Madam Chair, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, sir. And I apologize to your team. Would you be so kind to introduce your team, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, of course. We have Nathan Wilson, who is the Director of Operations for the department. Nate previously served as our legislative liaison and has been my right hand as we deal with all of our COVID challenges and the operations of the budget. Carol Briggs, the DOAG staff attorney. You've seen her before. She's relatively new, only 2 years with the agency, but a critical component of the commissioner's office. And Kaylee Royston, who members of the House will recognize as a familiar face, previously served as Clerk of Human Services, has joined us over the past year as our legislative liaison. And we have Jay Yazensky from DAS, who is our budget analyst for the Department of Agriculture. He's in my upper right-hand corner, not sure where he is on your screens, but he is part of our business office.
Thank you, sir. Hey, Kaylee, good to see you. I will say it's really, for those members who are new, the difference is you've been a legislator, so you immediately identify the bills that you're doing so that we all know right up front. And we appreciate that. It's nice to talk to somebody who's familiar with being on this side and what information we need to have. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to jump right in. Senator Austin, go.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I don't know if it's almost afternoon, but good morning, Commissioner. It's a pleasure to see you. Actually, one of the questions I was going to ask is about dairy sustainability, and I'm wondering how is the dairy community doing these days as a result of the pandemic?
It's a great question and one that we don't have a solid answer for. The roller coaster that the dairy industry has faced nationally and internationally continues as hospitality comes back on and goes back off. The amount of milk and how it's being processed and where it's being processed and how it's getting to consumers continues to experience challenges. There's an old joke in the dairy industry: what happens when prices are good? Dairy farmers produce more milk. What happens when prices are bad? Dairy farmers produce more milk. And unfortunately, that's the case. I actually just saw a report this morning that we have more cows in the national herd than we've ever had before. And these animals are producing a larger quantity of milk than each animal has ever before. And so that does create a surplus on the market and push prices down. There's limited ways to offset that. I think our ag sustainability payment is critically necessary to help support and flatten out those hard bottoms. I was on a regional call with other New England commissioners yesterday. They don't have that payment, so their dairy industry has been hit a lot more significantly than ours has been, but it still remains a very difficult challenge for them.
And relative to, thank you for that. I will have some other questions vis-a-vis dairy sustainability, in particular the payments that incorporate the CIA funds and where we stand in the CIA fund relative to farmland preservation. However, I do have another question for the record now, and that's on the senior food vouchers. I'm wondering, is there enough real dollars in senior food vouchers, and where can someone use the senior food vouchers?
Great question, great program, and I'll blend senior farmers market nutrition program checks with the WIC farmers market nutrition program checks as we administer them jointly at the department. So the farmers market nutrition program checks that are distributed had some challenges this year, right? As we know, there's a lot less face-to-face interaction, not only at the markets, but also with the agencies that distribute the booklets on behalf of the Department of Agriculture. So we waived a couple of the requirements, recognizing that individuals who are at risk may not want to go out to a farmer's market to use their checks. So we waived some of the signatory requirements. We've actually requested that those waivers be extended permanently in statute in one of our agency bills. We didn't see any fraud through there. And we did know that it was helpful for seniors who were homebound or who had limited access to transportation to get to local farmers markets. Also, some farmers markets moved most of their commerce online, and so it wasn't the same experience. So the individuals were ordering their goods online and then having somebody pick them up for them. We have, and I can get you the reimbursement for the state senior was about 77% usage for the dollars that were distributed. There's always a little bit of a lag. I'll just be completely honest. We do a much better job distributing and redeeming the senior vouchers than we do with the WIC vouchers. That was a very significant hurdle this year. Our WIC offices were closed across the state, and so that one-on-one interaction and reminder that WIC agencies could have with participants was limited. To that effect, we took some of the dollars that were available in the fund and we paid to mail the check booklets out to individual participants. We actually repurposed $20,000 to do that mailing. So not a small amount of money, but recognizing that that individuals wouldn't be able to go to their local WIC office to pick them up. As the reimbursements were lagging, we invested in a light multimedia campaign. Where we did some social media and some billboards in certain cities across the state, reminding folks that they had these checks available to use and to get to their local farmers market. I don't have the number as to what the WIC state fund usage was, but we can follow up and get that back to you, Senator. But those are great programs. The bill that I mentioned earlier, the Environment Committee did increase the booklet amount from $18 to $20. My understanding is that is in an effort to help those individuals that are using the checks and give them a couple extra dollars. We haven't had the chance to run the numbers to see how many fewer people that means we would be able to distribute the check booklets to, but recognizing that at 77% usage rate, we may be able to get more people or those individuals that are using it, extend their dollar amount that they have access to.
Thank you for that. And at the working group, can you please bring in the number of positions that you have that are in the budget and those that are filled, how many vacancies you have, so that we can look at that to make sure that your very small agency is appropriately staffed. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And Madam Chair, I can respond to that now if that's the will of the committee. No? Okay.
No, we have quite a few and we still have, okay. One quick question. Did you get any COVID dollars so far this year?
We have not received any COVID dollars. We have an outstanding of about, I think, $10,000 between PPE and OT that we've requested.
Okay, thank you. Senator Hartley.
Hi. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And thank you, Commissioner, for, your being so nimble and working through this crisis that we have, in particular with the senior food voucher. that is just so crucial. Just quickly, our farmers, there has been a lot of conversation that there's mislabeling with regard to the Connecticut grown label. And therefore, if you want to categorize it as, counterfeit produce claiming to be Connecticut grown, which disadvantages our farmers. Does the department have a position on this?
Yes, and we did request in one of our agency bills to further the penalties for mislabeling Connecticut grown. As I think members who have been around a little bit longer will recall, probably within the past decade, there was a number of individuals who were bringing in, I believe the particular instance was blueberries from New Jersey, labeling them Connecticut grown, selling them at certified Connecticut farmers markets, and really misleading the public. So it is a consumer protection component that's there, but also there are some priorities and preferences in state contracts or school contracts for Connecticut grown products. And if individuals are stating that they're purchasing, or the bulk of their purchasing during certain parts of the year is supporting Connecticut grown products, that's misleading to the boards of education and to the procurement officers that are trying to use those dollars to support Connecticut farmers. And so we do want to make sure that there's a penalty in place and push those purchasers to really focus on Connecticut grown products and producers and procurement organizations. I would argue, Senator Hartley, folks like Brass City Harvest could fulfill a lot of those contracts if they were given a fair chance. But the way it's currently designed, they're not able to compete with a large multinational organization who does buy a little bit of Connecticut grown products at very specific certain times of year, whereas somebody like Brass City does a great job of purchasing all Connecticut grown products and could meet the demands of those contracts.
Thank you so much. But how do we level the playing field? Because we want to obviously, raise our economy. These are important members of the Connecticut economy.
I think the first thing we can do is get that increased penalty into statute and allow the agency to start pursuing claims that individuals or organizations are not following the intent of the law and the usage of the Connecticut grown logo.
And are you equipped to do the enforcement with that?
I believe that our ag marketing inspection representatives in the agency that do inspect produce and farms would have the ability to do some of that work. I think if we had the citation language and the enforcement language that we've been requesting over the past number of years, that would give us the actual ability to get those offenses citationed and penalties levied.
Okay, thank you. And is that bill in environment?
Yes, and we have systematically requested that citation language be added to all of our agency bills, recognizing that there are only going to be a few bills that make it across the finish line this legislative session, and that citation language is very important for our ability to do enforcement.
Thanks. We'll be tracking that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Representative Ferraro. No, you're muted, sir. You're still muted.
Again, my hand is up when it shouldn't be. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. That's quite all right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Representative Dillon. Oh, do you have questions, sir? No. Okay. Representative Dillon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hello, Commissioner. Thank you for your testimony. For the work group, I would just like to follow up on the programs in your agency that partner Connecticut farmers with those that are food insecure. And I am concerned if the participation with the WIC population was a challenge this year. And it sounds to me like, given what the Chairman Walker said, that it would be COVID related, anything that you were doing that was trying to increase, but we want the babies to be healthy. And if there's anything that we can do or to help you to increase participation by our farmers and by the WIC families, if you could provide that to the work group, that would be very important. One component of that would be if there is any kind of a timeline on what kind of when was the last time we raised the subsidy through any of those vouchers? What has it been over time? And that provides tremendous, the senior program and the WIC provide tremendous comfort and healthy food to families, but they're also a secure revenue stream for some of our area farmers. And I'd like to look at it from both sides, because that was always the idea, that it would enable some of our farmers to market directly, and which meant that they had to learn new crops. And I get that. And it was a learning curve. But if we could do something to make it easier for our farmers to participate and for our seniors and our babies to be healthy, that would be great if you can give us that information. And the second is also about the food insecure in families, and it's your food box, which was a federal program, which the regulations changed. I think it was Willimantic, Bridgeport, and New Haven people. I wonder if you could provide the subcommittee with any update, given that there were changes in the federal rules that may have cut out some of our Connecticut farmers. I don't know what the status is now and whether that has been reversed, but if there's something that we can do about that. I thought that was a great program. I think I mentioned an environment. I think, they're carrying those boxes out in Representative Walker's district, but Willimantic has tremendous need as well. Bridgeport, I haven't spoken to the people, but I know they had a very robust interest in that, and I assume that they've done well. It would be great if we could expand participation and protect the different farmers and distributors in the supply chain at the same time that we're helping people get healthy food. All of that answer would be provided to our work group. Is that?
If I could give you just a quick response in a lot more detail in the work group, since we have everybody here. The Department of Agriculture has been the coordinating agency for the Farm to Family Food Box Program. And Representative Dillon, thank you for acknowledging that it's a federal program. We have inserted ourselves into it because the vendors for phase 3, 4, 5, and now 6 have all been out of state with no relationships in our local communities. And so by inserting ourselves into it, we have been able to ensure that the food boxes that are coming into the state aren't just going along the 91, 95 corridors, but are getting out to all areas of the state. We've been partnering with dozens of local nonprofits, community organizations, businesses around the state to make sure that those food boxes are moved. To understand the size of this effort, over the past 6 months, the department has been responsible for moving 500,000 food boxes. And I'll just acknowledge that we have repurposed some of our staff to do this. We have learned a lot of things. We've made partners and relationships with organizations that have never had any reason to be partners with the Department of Agriculture in their history. But we've done this to make sure that the food has been distributed across the state to where we know there are high areas of need, and not just easy, low-hanging fruit. I'll share that New Hampshire, not New Haven. When we were getting 41 tractor trailer loads of food boxes in per week, New Hampshire was getting 2 tractor loads per week, and they were turning them back because they didn't have the infrastructure. Vermont, the tractor trailer loads came in, dumped the food at a warehouse, the tractor trailer loads moved, and then the food sat and rotted in the warehouse. We were able to make sure that all of this food that was assigned to Connecticut through AMS, and I in fact called AMS and lobbied for more food boxes to be brought into the state, recognizing the high need that we had, were being distributed to families in need. So I can get you a lot more information on that. Unfortunately, one of the most easy and best ways to improve the program in my mind would have been to give states more flexibility and input on the contracting. The Della Camera family and the Willimantic Food Co-op were the only two Connecticut-based farms or farm operations co-ops that participated, and they only participated in phase 1 and 2. Willie Della Camera had contracts ready for phase 3, and USDA declined to extend his contract from phase 2 to phase 3. But he was doing a great job producing a lot of high quality goods, getting paid a fair dollar for his product that was going into Bridgeport, New Haven, and North Haven. It was really disappointing that that USDA took that. I do believe that the incoming Congress and USDA will have some changes to the emergency feeding programs to better reflect that we can improve the economies from the ground up and keep people employed and keep farmers getting paid as ways to get them out of that line and put them into producing for that line or distributing the food boxes. That change hasn't happened yet, but I'm still holding out optimism for it.
Could you provide a minimum one pager for the work group? Because you've given us a lot of information. I know it's a federal program. I heard Willie Della Camera speak last April, right after the shutdown. It was heartbreaking. And if we can keep our own people whole on the ag side and get our people fed as well, there's no loss there. It's a good thing. So I appreciate what you've done, and maybe we should do some more. I'm always worried about oysters, and you know that, so I'll just mention that and then leave that because I know the chair is very time sensitive. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Representative Datham.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And thank you very much, Commissioner, and to you and your team. Just wanted to ask a question regarding the Regional Market Fund, the elimination of that. Has that affected any of our producers, agricultural producers in our state adversely with that change?
Thank you for bringing that up and recognizing that. That's actually a delayed budget adjustment. In 2018, the legislature moved the Hartford Regional Market from the Department of Agriculture over to the Capital Region Development Authority. In 2019 and 2020, we worked with them on the operations in the regional farmers market that takes place over the weekend. But they have been responsible for the day-to-day operations of the regional market for about 2 years now. I am in regular communication with their executive director. We both understand and appreciate the value that the regional market offers to our farms across the state. They have done the best job as possible, especially during COVID, when, if you'll recall, we started the stay home, stay safe at the beginning of the spring last year, right at about the start of the Hartford Regional Farmers Market operations. I went out and visited early one morning. They did a great job with signage, with traffic control, with security officers, trying to make sure that it was a safe environment for both the producers that were there offering their goods, but also the consumers. Arguably, it was a challenging year because people were not getting out as much, especially at the beginning of that time. But I think they've done a pretty good job of maintaining the operation there and making sure that it remains a venue for Connecticut farmers to offer their goods.
That's great news. Thank you for reporting that. And that's it, Madam Chair. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you to your staff for providing us with any with the information. And if we have any other additional questions, we will make sure that they get them to you for the working group. And I hope you have a great day. Goodbye. Have a good day. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to all the members for the opportunity, and we'll certainly get those documents ready for the working group.
Okay, and just to let everybody know, we will reconvene. We recess from 12 to 1. We will reconvene at 1 o'clock. We have Department of Economic and Community Development. Then after that, we have the Department of Labor. And then after that, we have the Department of Housing, and I believe after that we have the Agricultural Experimental Station.
No, ma'am, no, ma'am, no,
Ma'am.
ma'am, no,
Okay.
ma'am. And then the revised schedule that was sent to members last week, I indicated that the Agricultural Experiment Station and CEQ both declined the invitation to appear.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. So we
You're
have
welcome.
DECD, Department of Labor, and Department of Housing. So I look forward to everybody back at 1 o'clock. Have a good break. Thank you, everybody. We are.
Thank you. See you at 1, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.